as harsh. UTAG, in a press statement, questioned the basis of the sanctions, saying a fact-finding committee could not establish allegations of sex for grades. Lecturers Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Butako were handed 6 and 4 month suspensions without pay, respectively, by the university's disciplinary committee, as it found they had breached sections of the school's code of conduct for academic staff. Let's take a listen to Director of Public Affairs of the university, Stella Amoah.
These sanctions, that is a suspension that has been imposed on the 2 lecturers, is coming from recommendations made by the disciplinary committee. This recommendation made by the disciplinary committee has been accepted, and the 2 lecturers have been informed accordingly. They are also required to undergo annual assessment for a period of 5 years.
That's the head of public affairs at the University of Ghana, Stella Amoah there. What President of the University of Ghana branch of UTAC, Dr. Samuel Nkuban, said he finds it unusual that persons who were not found complicit in any case of sexual misconduct are being subjected to training and assessment for a period of 5 years.
BBC sought to indicate in the documentary that was aired in October that our colleagues, Professor Jampo and Dr. Butako, were implicated in sex for grades, and the university interdicted them on the basis of that and constituted a fact-finding committee. On the basis of the report that the fact-finding committee submitted to the university, it's clear that there was no evidence in relation to the fact that they engaged themselves in having sex with students and giving them grades. And so that is a critical matter that needs to be communicated to the public, and also that the university in its communications on this matter has not made this very clear and has not indicated the reasons for which they have had to face the disciplinary committee. Now, the fact-finding committee didn't find anything sex for grades against them, but also that their conduct constituted misconduct against the ethics of our profession in relation to the statutes and then the code of ethics of the university. And that is the reason for which they were referred to the disciplinary committee. And that is the reason for which they've been sanctioned with the suspension that currently hangs on their head. And so that is what this statement generally seeks to communicate. And also to indicate to the university community that it is important for us to find a fair balance between our need to protect our interests as an institution as well as the people who make up the institution.
Well, that's the Dr. Samuel Nkuban of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, President of the Ghana branch. He also joins me on the line right now to explore the 7-point concerns that they've raised in their press conference. Doc, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you for having me, and good evening to listeners.
Right. Let me also indicate that we have on the line lawyer for the lecturers, lawyer Xavier Sasu. Mr. Sasu, thanks for your time as well.
Yeah, good evening, and a very good evening to your cherished listeners.
So, Doc, I'm starting with you. You've raised concerns, the 7-point concerns, as you have it in your press release. But first of all, do you not see or do you not agree with the university's position that these 2 lecturers misconducted themselves as far as the regulations of the school, the university, is concerned?
That is not a position of UTAC. Reality is this, that from 2010, the university has had a sexual harassment and a misconduct policy. And on the basis of that and the structures that exist within the university in terms of discipline in relation to this policy, members of UTAC have been dismissed. And I'm not sure that you can refer to any situation in the past that UTAC has had concerns in relation to decisions of the university in those other cases. What we seek to make clear in this particular instance is that there hasn't been, an accuser in the case of Professors Jampo and Dr. Butako. But what it is that, of course, for the first time in our history, it was a media expose. And so what followed was interdiction. And we are not saying that the due processes that the university took them through were not okay. What we did was to indicate to the university management that we thought that once the core allegation of sex for grades was not established against them, then of course the merit of the documentary was in question. Besides that, the reason for which they were made to face disciplinary action had not been clearly communicated to the public. One of which, of course, the key thing was that they were engaging in sex for grades. That was not established against them by the fact-finding committee of the university. And so our position clearly is that once that was not established and that has not been communicated to the public, it doesn't exonerate the university of this allegation, this assertion that academic staff of the university engage in sex for grades.
So position,
simply put, that is the key position that must be made very clear.
Right. And so let's assume that we're going strictly by the position of the university, which is that these two lecturers misconducted themselves as far as the regulation of the school is concerned. We put away sex for grades because that's the bone of contention as far as you're concerned. Right now, do you agree with the position of the university that the two of them misconducted themselves as far as the regulations in the school are concerned?
We certainly do not have any disagreement on that.
Okay.
And the reason is this, because if I'm using myself as an individual who probably finds myself in town, and for some good reason, based on what our policy says, that if I were to engage in an open confrontation with, say, a taxi driver, and we are beating up each other and it becomes public news, my action would have brought the name of the university and the image of the university and the name, my personal name and my personal image as a member of the university community into disrepute. And certainly, it is difficult for anybody to extricate himself from the fact that their actions were not complicit in terms of misconduct as against the statutes and the code of conduct of senior members. What we have said in relation to this is that once the core allegation of sex for grades was not established against them, we thought that the period of interdiction and the financial implications on them constituted sufficient punishment, and that the recommendations of the disciplinary committee would have taken that into consideration. Maybe they did. We are not privy to as much information as may have been available to the committee and all of that.
Are you able to seek that information, as in request that information from the university?
Well, it's not something we are willing to do under the circumstance, because what has happened is that our colleagues who are implicated in this matter have accepted to serve the sanctions that have been imposed on them. We are looking at how, moving forward, we are able to realign our lives, ensure that generally there is a fair balance between our interest in protecting the image and the name of the university as against the well-being, the welfare of staff of the university who make up the university.
And so this
generally, this is the basis for the statement for which UTAG has.
And in this statement that you released, contains 7 strong points of your position, containing your position. Do you not worry that this could be understood to be that UTAG is protecting its members as against helping to enforce proper conduct? And I use this expression advisedly, proper conduct in our universities or among our university lecturers.
Well, it's the case that UTAG as a professional association would always, on an annual basis, do what we call orientation for newly appointed colleagues. And at this forum, they look at the policies, documents that relationship and conduct within the university campus. And if you read the statement also, we have said that we do not condone any acts that will contravene the statutes of the university, the code of conduct for senior members, and of course also the sexual harassment and misconduct policy and any other policies that govern how we relate and how we ought to conduct ourselves within the university. And we also have emphasized our resolve to work with management in an attempt to continue to educate and to sensitize the university community about these policies, so that we do not, going forward, we do not find ourselves where we are at this runabout. 2
quick questions before I let you go, Doc. You are suggesting a retrospective judgment for the 2 lecturers, to which you want the time that they spent on interdiction to be factored into the new sanctions, if you like, that the university has imposed on them. Did you suggest this to the university, and were you given any reasons why that could not be possible?
Well, we did. We did in writing to the Vice Chancellor, and we have good reason for which they could not respond in good time before the outcome or before the communication of this other sanctions which have been imposed. And so, going beyond that, reality is this, that contact with our colleagues and what have you, the internal arrangements that we've put in place to ensure that we have an amicable solution, our colleagues have accepted to serve the sanctions, and that is where we want to leave matters.
Okay. Doc, thank you very much for your time this evening here on Top Story. Dr. Samuel Nkuban is the president of the University of Ghana branch of UTAG. Like I said, I do have lawyer for the two lecturers on the line as well, lawyer Xavier Sosu. Lawyer, you've seen the statement from UTAG. You've also heard him say that indeed the lecturers have agreed to go with these sanctions. What are your reactions?
Our initial reaction would be that we want to appreciate the work of UTAG in this regard and the concerns that they have raised, even though we would have wished that these concerns were raised much, much earlier at the time that the work for the fact-finding committee ended. And I'm sure that would probably would have informed the final outcome of this decision. But be that as it may, I must say that since the decision was communicated to the lecturers, we have also written back to the University Council asking that the sentence be made to run from the date of interdiction. So we are yet to have any responses to that letter, and we are looking forward to the university responding favorably to that, given all the concerns that have been raised in respect of the sanctions.
You also insist that the laws of natural justice have been breached with regard to your client. On what basis?
Well, definitely so, because in a case where we don't have any determined complainant, you would recall that when this matter began, it was a BBC documentary that formed the basis for the entire allegation. So I would have thought that the BBC would make themselves available as complainants. But I quite recall that during the fact-finding committee's sitting, all attempts to get the BBC to come and answer and be subjected to some form of cross-examination proved futile. And so under those circumstances, clearly, no weight can be put on the video that was aired by BBC. Then quite apart from that, when the university decided to charge Prof. Jampo and Dr. Butako with misconduct simpliciter and not sexual misconduct, we raised the issue quite clearly that, so what would be the basis? Who is the complainant in that matter? And as we speak now, the university is its own complainant in its own court, and is the judge and is the prosecutor. So under those circumstances, clearly the rules of nemo juris in causa sua of natural justice has been breached in relation to the lecturers. And that can be a basis to actually quash the entire process. However, as we've indicated earlier, the lecturers have said that they don't want to be in a banter with the university. They are willing to just move on because they've also learned very useful lessons that is going to guide their career path moving forward.
And quite apart from what the university lecturers have agreed to do and what they have not agreed to do, just to clear this up in the minds of right-thinking members of society, evidence was found against the lecturers by the university establishing misconduct as far as the results from the fact-finding committee has communicated. And so there is misconduct. The teachers themselves work with the university and they are subject to the university's regulation. Wouldn't you say that this is grounds enough for them to be punished if they, as they have?
Well, I mean, that does not change the rules of due process. When you go to Article 23 of the Constitution, all administrative bodies or persons that are charged with administrative authority are bound to observe the rules of natural justice. They are bound to observe all the rules of due process, i.e., we should know who our accusers are. We should know the basis of that accusation. You should give them an opportunity to confront the accuser. It's not enough for us to just make a conclusion that based on a set of misconduct, they could be subjected to processes like we saw. So every rule of the university is subject to the Constitution of Ghana and Article 23 of the Constitution.
Well, obviously, you've indicated that your clients have no plans of moving this any further. They'll subject themselves to the sanctions of the university, and I believe that does it then.
Yes, but we look forward to a favorable consideration to the letter we have sent to the University Council, where we are requesting that the university allows the lecturers to serve the sanction or to allow the sanction to commence from the date of interdiction.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Xavier Sosu there. He represents the two university lecturers, Professor Butako and Jampo, two of them together. You're still here on Top Story with me, Gifty Andoh Appiah, and tonight Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, is claiming the ranks of the NDC is divided over whether the MPs should have walked out of the House during the President's State of the Nation address. He says a lot of the MPs, including Second Deputy Speaker Alban Bagbin, were against the idea. But the NDC Chairman and General Secretary forced the minority MPs to walk out, although some of the MPs were also opposed.
I got to know of this the day before yesterday, what we were planning, the fact that their party chairman had come and was instigating them to boycott. So I asked my colleague, the minority leader, early yesterday morning, that was what I had heard. And he said to me that they were in the process of consulting. I'm told from the grapevine that Backping advised that it wasn't good what they were going to embark on. But there are hawks in the party. I'm told again that he consulted the former president, who from the grapevine, I'm also told, advised that no, he thought it wouldn't make much sense. But they should stay, and if maybe the president said anything that offended them and they wanted to walk out, they could. That is what some of their own people told me. So I was thinking that in that case, they would stay. But of course, I understand the president prevaricated a bit. The former president prevaricated a bit. So even though he proffered that advice, he said, oh, but notwithstanding, you listen to what the party will say. So as you didn't get here, the enforcer then came and then told them that they should listen to what the party.
So this was a party thing and not exactly an independent thing that the minority themselves felt they had to do.
Some of them who were whispering to me, outside their own confines, were telling me that they were divided front. Maybe they will stay, maybe they wouldn't stay. So until they came, and I said Dunketia came, I think the front was divided. And I had the impression that they were going to stay.
How much does this threaten our democracy going forward?
I think that conduct was offensive, especially given the fact that it was predicated on nothingness. If it is something real, I mean, we have done that before, but that is 2013. But don't forget, we have boycotted a swearing in because we disputed the status of President Mahama at the time as the president of the country.
Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Majority Leader Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu there. Well, with what he's heard from the grapevine, he also says the decision to walk out is untenable. He accused minority MPs of shifting the goalpost on the concerns for which they wanted to walk out.
I wouldn't want to question that, except that the basis for their doing that, certainly in my considered opinion, was untenable and remains untenable. What were the issues? Remember last week Friday, colleagues raised issues about non-payment of the MP section of the Common Fund. And we dealt with that.
So the money has been paid?
Yes, in fact, at the time we were talking, unknown to us, I think the day before, there had been transmittal of the amount. And so even though that was the main issue they raised last Friday, that if the amounts were not transmitted to the members, they would boycott. That matter was really satisfying.
In fact, the minority leader, when I asked him at their press conference yesterday, he said the reason for the boycott does not include the DACF money, and that was a rumor.
As I said last week Friday, you were all here. That was the issue that they raised. Weren't you in the chamber? So what happened yesterday and their boycott was an ex post facto justification. They raised issues relating to.
You think they shifted the goalpost eventually?
Absolutely.
They were not
absolutely.
Truthful
because Tuesday when we met at the caucus, the joint caucus, the matter came up again, and then I explained. They were saying that, well, we should then talk to the president so that his choice of words when he comes will not be provocative. That was the issue.
Well, still on the majority leader, while the minority said one of their decisions to boycott is that President Akufo-Addo is not intervening to get the Electoral Commission to stop processes to acquire a new voters register. The majority leader says an intervention by the president could attract wrong perceptions.
Afarijan, as IPAC, insisted that, look, IPAC exists to proffer advice. I'm not bound by your advice. Because the Constitution is clear that in the performance of its functions, the Electoral Commission is not subject to any directions, right, or instructions from anybody, including Parliament and the President. Now, you boycott Parliament or you walk out on Parliament saying that the President has not intervened in what the Electoral Commission is doing. If the President instructs the Electoral Commission, some people in Ghana are saying that they don't like this, so please stop, and the Electoral Commission stops. Wouldn't it be the same Electoral Commission who will be saying that the same NDC will be saying that the Electoral Commission is in the pocket of the President? The President is ordering them about. So the President says they are an independent commission. Let them do their work as they deem fit, to the extent that they don't offend any provision in the Constitution, and you don't like that.
And finally on that, Harun Idrisu, who is the minority leader, had also claimed they walked out because the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election violence has not been dealt with. But Mr. Chairman Sabonsu says it is pretense.
What they are saying is sheer pretense. And in any event, if you want to allude to that, which I condemn, the Ayawaso incident is regrettable. We must all as Ghanaians condemn it. It related to a gunshot aimed at one person. But if you put the 7 lives behind you as if 7 lives don't matter, only one of them because that person is NDC, the NDC blood is more precious than the 7 others who were shot at Tripoli, and justify that by walking out, to me, it will be unconscionable.
They make a broader argument that some of the vigilante people who've been recruited into security agencies, that the Ayawaso West Wuogon Commission recommended that they be dealt with, hasn't been done, to the extent that they saw some of those political party vigilantes who have found their way into the security agencies here in Parliament yesterday, which also gave them some amount of fear. How do I do to make that point?
I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe if we can interrogate him further to point to that person. I don't know. What I know is yesterday, one of the military men, perhaps in his zeal, entered the chamber before the president came in. Right. In fact, before the house even sat, he came in, and I said to him that, hey, you have no place here. Can you please walk out? And he said, he just wanted to see to order. I said, but we're not in charge of order. The police are there. And indeed, he walked out.
If they cite some of these, as how come they were a little worried about hanging in the chamber for the president?
Please. You know it's a palpable untruth.
They make the point.
You know it's a palpable untruth. And you are saying to us that they are saying that some of the people that they saw at Ayawaso have been recruited into the regular service. Let him come with evidence. We are tired of cheap populism. let him do so. And when people make such sweeping statements, it is your charge to ask the person, who is that person that you're talking about? But if he makes such a sweeping statement and you allow him to go, and then you come and put the statement to me, I think it's an unfortunate inquest.
They say there is tyranny creeping into the country. The president
I'm asking you questions that you didn't ask. And on account of sweeping statements, conclusions are made, and you come to ask me to comment on a sweeping statement. Please, with respect to you, I will not answer that question.
No, there are other scenarios that they cite, including claims that the closure of radio stations is negatively impacting the country's democracy, and they wouldn't want to.
How come? You cannot just wake up and establish a radio station. You submit to regulations that are given to you. You pay taxes, you do this. If you neglect to pay your tax, you should be allowed to go on frolic because you sympathize with the NDC. Are they gods?
Majority Leader and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs for Seiche Mensa Bonsu. They're speaking to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. They're ending Top Story. Top Story is brought to you by Gasem, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready, and uncharted future. My name is Gifty Andoh Appiah, and on Ghana Connect tonight, we ask you, what is your assessment of the State of the Nation address? Inshura Adu is standing by. Do stay tuned.